Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner of the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves Cool. And you can find out more about us right here on the website at cool.us, that's CEWL.us. There you'll see all the live streams we do, all the information about our Cool Induction Institute, Cool Coaching, all the videos that our members create, information on retreats, on our docuseries. There's just tons and tons of great resources on there. So please head on over to cool.us. And of course, we wouldn't be here without a grant from the National Education Association and support from their affiliate here in South Carolina, the South Carolina Education Association. If you're interested in joining that union, you can do so right here at jointhescea.org. And you can do that right now. It's a great time to join because you don't pay any dues until September. So you can jump in right now in May and get May, June, July, and August at no cost. And then your dues would start in September. So it's a really great time to join and give us a shot and learn what we're all about and all the benefits that the SCEA and NEA have to offer you, including that liability coverage and tons of NEA member benefits. So hope that you will check out our sponsor tonight. So tonight we have two of my favorite people. They are both cool content creators. Pete Stone does Cool Vibes, and some of you may have seen the videos that he does. They get lots of engagement, lots of views, and also Cool Books with Cassie Owens Moore. Cassie is a school librarian in Oconee County. And they wanted to come on tonight because Cassie wanted to promote Pete's book called I Love the River. And thematically, it talks about issues that I think Pete and I both cover in different ways. Pete through Cool Vibes and through my docuseries and through some of the things I write about on our website. We talk about the importance of living with intention and slowing down and really sucking the marrow out of life. Really inspired by folks like Thoreau and really trying to just get people to think about the pace of life and also how we are working with kids and how we are spending our lives, and maybe how society is just maybe sped up a little bit too much, and maybe we need to think collectively about slowing down. So without further ado, around the author, Pete Stone, and the person who suggested our live stream tonight, the wonderful and talented Cassie Owens Moore. How are you both doing tonight?
Great.
I am doing great now that the great, Chromebook fiasco is slowing down.
Okay. So let's first of all, I want to thank you both for the content that you both create. It's been amazing. Cassie has been really brave in talking about banned books and also talking about books that support different communities that are often marginalized. When it's Black History Month, she highlights books that highlight Black history. And Pete, your videos really, I think, get people in thinking about issues in different ways. And the one that's being released tonight, I think, applauding administrators who don't force teachers to turn in lesson plans is just the kind of stuff that we need to hear from, because there's these big bills and issues, but sometimes it's these little issues that add up to create a lot of stress in educators' lives. So just want to thank you both for the content you create.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if those who are interested can find Pete's work on our website at cool.us/vibes. You can, every video he's ever made is on the website, and then Cassie's videos are also on the Cool website at cool.us/books. Let's though get into tonight. We're calling this session Finding Peace and Joy, which I think is something near and dear to my heart. Cassie, you suggested it. What was it about Pete's book, I Love the River, that you felt was worth promoting to folks tonight?
Well, first of all, I am a huge fan of Pete Stone. I am every video is so good. You have a way of one of my professors used to call it practicing word economy. You just say what needs to be said in a very powerful way, which is something I admire because Todd can tell you. I can go on and on about books. As a matter of fact, like I've got like 3 videos I need to send, but I'm like, they're so long. Like, who has time? But I kind of get mixed up in all of that. So I'm just a big fan of what you say and the way you say it. And then this book, it is just, oh my goodness. So when I said you should write a book, and then you like, oh, I wrote a book. I had to get it. It's so calming. It's just simple. And again, I think it's that practicing word economy. You don't need a lot of words to, express yourself and to give this really calming message, really this affirming message. Like, I love the river when I'm with you. What a kind thing to say to someone. So it's not just, I love the nature, or, and not just I love you, even though, that's kind of the sentiment, but it's something about putting those two parts together. When I'm with you and when I'm with nature, it's like everything else just kind of fades away. And it's so calming, and it sits on my coffee table. My son was just here visiting me for Mother's Day, and he's like, "Oh, this is really sweet." And I was like, "It is very calming." It's just simple. But I didn't expect anything different from you, because your videos, like I said, you just have a way of saying a lot without using a lot of words. Has that always been a skill for you?
Well, I think taking time to reflect on what to say and speaking slower helps to not reactively speak, but speak from a place of peace and source. And so the benefit of those videos, too, of course, is I can edit out all the extra words, too. And so we talk, and then you find that moment of what it is. It's like, that's exactly. So I would say maybe that comes from editing into the essence of what it is I wish to express. Uh, but I love your work as a librarian. You're right in the crossfires now of our crazy society. So pointlessly, I grew up with the heroes LeVar Burton, and I saw a meme that Sesame Seat didn't become woke. You just grew up to be a jerk. And that's the way I feel about it. So thank you for speaking the truth and doing it. I'm sure it takes tremendous courage, but you do it in such a natural way that I always tell people, when someone's really great at something, they make it seem easy. So you make it look easy to stand in that place and share the truth. But I know that is not easy. And so many people are shying away. So it's such a blessing having you speaking for librarians all across the nation. And so I admire your work. And I think too, speaking of short or long videos, there's a place for both of them. I edit mine down, but there's trends showing that people are engaging because we're hungry not just for short sound bites and stuff, but someone just talking from the heart and soul. So I love your videos. So keep sharing more, even if they feel too long, because that's real and it's coming from such a beautiful place.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I just always feel bad for Todd when I send these videos, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just keep going. But yes, what inspired you to just write my book?
Well, what inspired me to write this book was a few things. One, I have to give credit to one of my mentors, Vivian Ayers, who wrote the book Hawk right here. Hawk is a phenomenal book. Vivian Ayers was recognized by NASA as one of the women of Apollo recently. And when I was in medical school, she wrote me a letter cussing me out for being in medical school. Her husband was a dentist, and so she saw that life. And for her, this book is very much a documentation of her journey to the sun. Now she speaks strongly of metaphors, so if it's about going to the sun. As if you tell her, "Oh, is there light going to the sun?" She said, "No, no, no. I went to the sun." And say, "Yes, ma'am." And it's about finding a place of peace and freedom that is immovable, that's truth, that cannot really be spoken about directly. It has to be poetry is the language of beauty. And then I found a quote that kind of speaks my inspiration for writing this from Rumi, the Sufi poet, that in your light I learned how to love, in your beauty how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do. And that sight becomes this art. So that moment where we break out of thinking, 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 just to I wanted to find some way of expressing that, capturing that, to share it with my children and with all children, because as I said on the back cover too, only through the child of a heart can one enter the kingdom of heaven. And so I wanted just to express that uh, wonder that at one point in all our lives is so intuitive, but somehow it gets taught out of us. We lose that ability to just go to the river. And so this is a book as a reminder, I guess, for me, first and foremost, that when you go to the river and you connect with the river, you are connected with absolutely everything, everyone, and everywhere in its truest form. Langston Hughes's wonderful poem about the river, I have known rivers, long, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the river. And so the river is a metaphor for our connection through ancient past, for the distant future, but it's all living right here now. And you just feel that. And when you enter into that place, time, space goes away and you just are. And I wanted to share that piece um, with others as a reminder, hey, go find your river and enter into the kingdom of heaven as a child does. So,
I
One of
love
the one of the things that I love about this conversation is Cassie came to our retreat last summer, and it was right by a creek that runs down through the mountain. And what I think you're getting at is what we try to get at these retreats. And I think sometimes we don't really, like in education, we're so busy talking about externalities, like we're talking about legislation, the the different things that are happening in at the state house or policy, and all of that's really important. You know, all that practical, pragmatic stuff is affecting educators day to day. But I think this conversation around what's going on inside of us, what's going on inside of educators, and really the systemic, uh, some of the systemic issues that prevent us from living in that kind of flow state, that state of just being. Um, and so I don't know, Cassie, maybe you can talk about how that experience at the retreat, not trying to self promote here, but like how that experience kind of correlates to what I think Pete's trying to get at in his book.
Oh, absolutely. I'm having problems with my sound. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there's just a little bit of static, I think. I don't
Is
know.
it still?
Yeah. I'm not sure what it is. It almost sounds like a hissing kind of electronic sound.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Do you hear it, Pete? Can you hear it?
very faintly, I can hear her.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you fine.
Yeah,
It's just a little bit of statics, but let's keep going.
well, I
yeah.
apologize.
It's all good.
Just who
No, it's not
knows
bothering me.
what's
So, yeah.
happening?
Hmm.
I promise you, it's not a TikTok trend or anything
Oh,
over
it's all good.
here. Nothing like that. But yes, going to the retreat was absolutely amazing. I am someone who has a tendency to just go, go, go. And I've been working with a therapist, and we talked about how it's a trauma response. So it's like my body's way or my brain's way of saying, I don't want to deal, so let me just put more things on my plate so I don't have to. And I still struggle with that a little bit, but I recognize it now. I didn't even recognize it before. And so I didn't even want to go to the retreat because I didn't feel like I had time to go to the retreat. And the whole time I was driving there, I was like, this is weird. I don't know these people and they're going to be all touchy feely. And I don't know if I'm in the mood for that. And then I get there. It was just the calmness. It was the
Yeah.
quietness of being there in nature. And there really was just this little river kind of running behind our little tiny home. And I just sat on the rock and I thought, I don't have time for this. I do have time for this. And, Todd and Jelena, they just took us through these, I say exercises, but not really, just mindfulness practices to slow down and to notice where you are and to walk with intention and to talk with intention and to eat with it. I mean, just all of these intentional things. And I came home from that retreat and just immediately started emailing people and saying, okay, I've got to get off this and I've got to stop doing this. And because I didn't want to, I wanted to hold on to that as long as I could. Now, Todd, you'd be a little disappointed. I got busy again, but I also recognized it again, and so I had like 5 things lined up for this summer, and I just started taking them off. It's like I can't do this. I
Right.
can't function this way, and I think that it's something that people who are very passionate about what they do or just about their families or all these things, they don't seem like a lot of things because you love them and you enjoy them, but it's still a lot. And that was one of the things that I love so much about Pete's book, is just because it was that slow down. I love the river. When I'm with you, when my son was here, and he lives in Kentucky, he's in school in Kentucky, I had so many things. Like it was an unexpected visit, and I thought, "Oh no, Miles is here. I've got to." But then I thought, "No, my son is here. I can kind of slow down. Like I don't have to attend that. My son is here," and that was really powerful for me.
Yeah, and it's a, for me, a constant challenge because the pace of just society in general, just like, for example, like I had a fraud thing on my checking account, and so I had to go to the bank, and one bank, they didn't have any openings with a banker, so I had to go to another branch, and then by the time I got home and had to reset up all of the accounts, the incoming and outgoing accounts, it's like just that was like 3 hours of my day that I didn't expect, and just a lot of stress and a lot of just like having to figure out which number to press to get to the right department, and then I'd get the right department, they loop you around, and just things like that. But then just the whole grind culture in society, so it glorifies that the more you're doing, the more your value is. And I think what Pete gets at in a lot of his videos, and something I try to stress in the docuseries and when I go out and talk to teachers, is that it's actually, we need to be thinking about how can we do less. And that's why I love Pete's video this week. It's like, admins, what can we take away instead of always thinking about what else we can be doing? What can we take away to make room for that peace and joy to emerge? If we clear out the weeds of the things that we don't need in that garden, the right things can grow. But if we just try to stuff so much into our day, including our students' day, take away recess, take away their time to talk, take away playtime, take away field trips, take away anything that isn't related to the standardized test, which unfortunately folks are having to endure right now. It's like we take all that away and to make more room for academics and for test prep. And then the teachers and students are left uninspired. And then we wonder why students misbehave or want to drop out. And then teachers, we can't recruit and retain them. So Pete, talk a little bit about that, not only your book, but just how the things you talk about in Cool Vibes for people who haven't watched that, like some of the themes that you talk about. Just
Yeah,
riff on that.
I'll segue into that with a quote from my book, and then I'll go into it.
Perfect.
Yeah, on this page right here, which is the cover page, it says, "For doing no thing, but being with you brings all I could ever need, much more than working hard, getting nothing done, being constantly busy. That goal of doing no thingness, no thing is really uh, such a easy thing to accomplish, but it's so difficult in our society that prioritize, you said, product and outcome, product, when really the product and outcome should be not the end in itself. The product and outcome should be the means to the have a process, because we're here on earth. We got to do something. I mean, so we have a process. Okay, if this is what I want to do, well, here's my process. But the most important aspect of that comes from the mysterious why, the wonder, the beingness, the divineness, whatever it is you wish to call it, that true self that is seeing the thoughts and all that. So this is what gets us naturally excited and gives us meaning. We are so uh, distracted, but what students want is not to be entertained. They want meaning, but meaning does not come from doing things. Meaning comes from not doing things, doing no thing. That's why I put that verse in it. You can't really understand it until you experience doing no thing. But what the enjoyable times of school are the spaces in between the stuff,
Yes.
what people would call that's just the stupid, silly stuff. But that's where the living happens. That's where the real life happens. The silly stuff is the fun, the meaning part of it.
Right.
So I have
Andrea,
found,
because we're silly.
yeah, we're silly.
Yes,
That's what
yes.
we are. It doesn't make sense. And so that's what it is. If you try to make sense of it, you just destroy it. You crush it. That's that quote. If you can take a rose and pull apart the petals, stick it in a microscope, and tell a lot of interesting things about it, but what you no longer have is the rose. And so
Mm.
that's the poetry of it. And in my class as a teacher, it was a struggle to get the ability to do hardly anything, but I trusted my students that they're already a wonder. I tell them the first day, each of you is a divine miracle, a wonder beyond my comprehension. It's already within you. And my goal is by the end of this class for you to see the own wonder within yourself and shine that light. And in order to do that, people say, how did you get such good test scores? And I say, it's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. Because the wonder and the meaning and the beauty is already there within each
Yes.
child. We take walks, we just sit outside and stare. Um, I can't describe what we do, because if you try, well, what do you do? You you can't standardize it. You can't describe it. It just is. And when students feel that, so I'm really happy. I think when students say, "Well, what did you like about Mr. Stone's class?" I don't want them to be able to say what they did or what they enjoyed, because that's not it. If you point to something, this is it. We had a teacher in Chester who taught for 40 years. He passed away, and at his funeral, no one could really say what he did. Everybody loved him, but everybody loved him. He was like this guru almost that you just came and sat with, and that was it. So it's really hard for people to understand, wrap their heads around that conceptually. But what I speak about on Cool Vibes is basically, I'll say this: trust. We are human beings, not human doings. And we get so fixated on do this, do this, do this, do this. And
Hmm.
the problem is that doing may have been expressing the wonder in that other environment. But when you start to force what was done here on these individuals over here and say, y'all have to do this now because we visited this school and they were doing great stuff. That's great. I'm sure they were, because they were free. It emerged naturally. But when you uh, colonialize another school, so to speak, and force that upon them,
Mhm.
you've crushed it. You have to allow it to be organic. The last thing I'll say about this, see, I'm not always concise. I find it, and then I edit it. But the heart of it is this: we try to find, we put so much effort on data and the product and the outcome, and the human joy is a byproduct of that, that may or may not happen. If we instead prioritized human joy, human wellness, human
Right.
beingness first, I am confident the data will reflect that. And if it doesn't, you have the wrong data. So,
Yes. Yeah.
I
So
wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, that's spot on. I was just at the city council meeting last night because they were recognizing our Project Lit book club, which is completely voluntary. There's no, it is the book club of no rules. It's so interesting. If I offer 6 to 8 different books, per almost 9 weeks, but we end up having like 6 times a year because these kids are like crazy readers and they don't want to go every 9 weeks. But you can get a book, you choose whatever book you want to read. If you don't read the book, you can still come back. It's not like you have to read the book and do all this stuff. No, it's the conversation, it's the community. And when we get there, there's no forms to fill out, there's nothing, there's no judgment. It's just sitting around and listening to these kids talk and learn from each other. I really just kind of sit back, um, completely voluntary. So we did this last meeting in April. And, because of the, I don't know, hoopla around libraries and books, I have always invited the community to come in and watch. I'm like, you don't need for me to tell you what we do in this library. Just come in and see. And so a city council member was there and was just blown away. Like, they don't get a score for this, they don't get a grade for this. There's just nothing. And we don't care if you finish the book or not. We want you, 99% of them do, but we just don't want anyone to feel like I didn't finish it, so I can't come. We're like, you can always come. You get something just from hearing about it. And they were just blown away. Like, you're not teaching these kids to think this way or to dissect this book. That's never in the conversation, but it happens. And and someone said before that life happens and learning happens in the margins, and that's always stuck with me. So I think when you talk to kids about what's your favorite part of the day, it's the conversations in the hall. It's what the conversations at lunch. I see kids interacting with teachers outside because we still have a teeny weeny recess, and they'll run up to these teachers and talk. And that's where I think the learning really takes place. It's in that, nothing agenda. It's in that, you are free to just ask questions or to not ask questions, or all these things. And I think that that's so powerful. I'm watching these kids test this week because we've got 2 weeks of testing. We tested last week and this week, and I do all the makeup tests. And just to watch the anxiety, to see these kids kind of sweating bullets, and or having to wake kids up. I see everything in between, and I so badly walk around. Well, I walk around. I give everybody Starburst because that's my love language. But I so badly want to remind them, you are not a score. You're not a score. This is a test. It's you know, it is what it is, but this isn't you. This doesn't define you. This isn't all of that. I wish we could go back to Fields Day, art, projects in the hallway, chalk art outside, because I didn't grow up, and I'm thinking, I think I'm older than you guys, but not by much. But we didn't grow up being so tested all the time. I think that there is a deep correlation that no one on an educational front will do, because it'll show that the behaviors and the attitude and all these things have lowered because the number of tests have increased. We
Yes.
test the pieces, like two
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah. I appreciate all that, Cassie, and I agree with you that's and the thing that's interesting about the testing issue is that it does seem to be not a partisan issue. Like when I talk about test, I mean, sometimes when you talk about book bans or vouchers, that can be partisan. But when you talk about testing and you bring that up and say, I think kids are taking too many tests and they're over tested, and standardized testing is kind of damaging our schools. I mean, I've people from the far right to the far left who will like and agree with that. So I agree. And the thing is, so my big issue is standardized testing. It's not because I'm against assessing students. It's because it became the tail that wags the dog. So everything that happens in a school, the algorithm is set up to prioritize how we're going to prepare kids for the test, and anything that does not that leadership doesn't think is going to lead to greater test scores either gets eliminated or deprioritized. And so that's why you don't see kids, the kids writing with chalk on the sidewalk. You don't see as many classrooms like Pete's where kids can just go outside and take a walk or whatever. I mean, because the idea is if we can just shove more instruction into the school day, then we'll maximize the test score. And what they're failing to understand is what I think Pete's getting at, which is that the primary metric should be, are human beings flourishing in the building? Are these young people flourishing? Is their mental, social, emotional, physical health, all that's flourishing? Do we have happy kids, joyous kids, peaceful kids, kids that then that find meaning in their lives? Because what Thoreau said about most people living lives of quiet desperation is, I think, is a result of a society that says your value is, how do you fit as a cog into the system? How can you make the most money? How can you attain the most material success? And the kids who comply with the system that gets them there, they may get material success, but they may be deeply unhappy inside. And the kids who rebel against that, who don't comply, they're the ones who a lot of them get in trouble and then get kicked out of school, or they're constantly in ISS or OSS.
Right.
And so the whole system is set up deifying the tests rather than deifying what we're talking about tonight, which is human flourishing.
Yeah. The peace and joy component that Cassie was speaking to with the books, where you may have that reading group where it isn't like judge and a multiple choice test and how well do they critique it, because the process is what's prioritized there, not the product of how it's ranking. And I think in society and then our schools, what happens is there's such pressure, performance pressure, and absolutely everything, that we have to nail it. Like, and we get caught in everything. You even get caught in how peaceful and joyful we are. I've got to be peaceful and joyful, and damn it, I'm at the river and I'm here. So it can all become a game that we get caught in when it gets that performance anxiety. And then we have a society where you're either a saint or you're an SOB, and we just get scared because I have to be good. So you can let go of that pressure. And you did it with your students, I do it with mine too. I said, it's not about being good or bad. It's about being careful of how you define getting better, but getting better at things that make you feel better. Yeah, feeling more and personal peace, personal joy, is getting better at more peace and joy. And it's not a clean process. As I forgot what poet said it, but I'm as good as the best and as bad as the worst is true of every single one of us. So for me, starting with that place of, look, I'm not trying to impress. I am going to make mistakes, and that's life, that's learning. So embracing those, whatever, taking away performance anxiety is a huge step to getting peace and joy that we don't allow much room in our schools because we've made kids scared of the F word, failure. So if we embrace failure, your kid falls down 7,000 times or whatever to learn to walk, and you don't say, well, that's enough, or cutting you off, now you failed. It's just they continue to fall down until they don't. But even if they never walk, who gives a crap? I mean, you just get engaged in it from a place of, and you're not even thinking about the product. I am just engaged in the process. Like when you go to the river in my book, the metaphor there is, once you get out of your head about, even I'm going to the river, I'm going to relax, that's still a goal. You just let all that go. And then you just say, then you can start to authentically get somewhere. And we don't allow much time for that in our schools because there's such a fear of failure and performance anxiety, first and foremost.
We don't, just kind of hopping on that. I don't think we get to that just in our personal lives. Like, again, my therapist, who we are always kind of fighting, because she's like, you're such a pleaser. you are such a pleaser. And, and she's like, and there's a root cause of that. But, if we can just get you to the point where you don't feel like this is what you have to do. I mean, fortunately, I love my job. I love it. But she was like, but it's okay to say no to some things. It's so you can love your job and still say, nope, it's 4 o'clock. I think I'm going to leave now. But she said, I have this part within myself, and I do. I just want to stay and get everything done and have everything prepared and right. And so no one will stress, and I can just, at what cost, do I do that to myself? And I see that with students too. I talk to them about, um, you know, sixth graders love to read. Oh my gosh, we did Bean Stat this year. Our goal was 1,000,000 minutes. Sixth grade did over 400,000 of those minutes. Sixth grade alone. They can't participate in a lot of sports. They can't participate. They can't get super busy. So a lot of them they love to read. They come to the library and they read. As kids get older, um, they don't disappear because our eighth grade was really strong, but our eighth grade was like 270,000 minutes. And so I was asking some kids who I remember sixth grade, they were like my number one readers. And I just say, what happened? They're like, oh, I got so busy. I do soccer, I do piano, I do this, I'm in this, and then I'm in this honors, this. And it's good stuff. I'm not saying that any of that stuff is bad, but it's just the look on their face. Like, I remember coming to the library and just hanging out and reading. And that was, like I didn't have to run around and do all these other things. And I think that we all kind of get caught up in this busyness or this pleasing, because some of the kids I've talked to, they don't even like all the things they're doing. But they're just doing it because
Yeah.
it's expected for them to do it.
To that point, when talk with students, I prioritize like, look, try to focus on two things. One, things that you naturally enjoy doing. Now, these are not things you have to think about, because you have to think about, do I enjoy doing this? You obviously don't. If you have to ask 10 people, should I marry somebody? There's probably a warning sign there that you probably shouldn't. Do I really like this cake? I don't know. Let me call my. You don't. You like them. I just like it, and that gets taught out. So trust that. Number one, do you enjoy it? That's not something you think about. Number two is you might not enjoy it, but you need to do it in order to get to a place of something that you truly do enjoy. Now, this is where a lot of people get stuck because they end up, as you're saying, doing too many things they think they need to be doing to get to this other place that they don't. And it's so liberating to say, I don't really need, for me, it took me a while, but I don't need to go to medical school to be a doctor. Um, and that was such a liberating thing. I passed the board exam, got in the clinics, and I realized how many miserable medical students. Now, there's some happy ones who too, but there are so many miserable ones. And that's when the poet emailed me or mailed me a letter cussing me out to come back. So once you let go of things that you don't enjoy doing and you don't need to do, now you have the space and the time to be. Now, there are a lot of times that we get stuck because no matter what you enjoy doing, there are going to be inevitable parts of it that just aren't fun that you have to push through. But that's where I focus on the process to get you to a better result. But that's tricky. Be very careful about just assuming I need to do this to get to some other ultimate level in life, because too many people get caught in that lie. And before you know it, like you said, they don't really enjoy doing any of it. So,
Yes.
and
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, one of the things that you're getting at that I used to talk with my students about is we we set kids up for a life of always looking at the next step as the purpose of the current step. So
Hmm.
in other words, like, your education is so that you can get in, you can get into a good college. You can get into a good college so you can get a good job. You get a good job so you can get a raise or a promotion. And and then I always told my kids, I'm like, you do that throughout your entire life, then you just get to retirement. You're 65, 70 years old, you're retired. How much time do you have left? You spent your entire life dedicated to the next step instead of enjoying the step that you're on. And this is, to me, is one of the biggest things that we do to kids is we essentially steal their childhood to to meet the arbitrary goals that adults have set on them about what it means to be successful, what it means to for them to have a meaningful life. And we don't start with the place that you're talking about, Pete, which is let's start with what is it that these young people are really curious about. What do they have inquiries about? They have this natural desire to learn and to find out about their world, but we take them through a pacing guide and a rigid curriculum because that's what we've been told kids have to do. And then there's no freedom for the teacher, no freedom for the student. It's all like a program to get them to the end of a journey at the end of their senior year. A lot of these kids are graduating, end of that journey, never having really honored their curiosity, other than maybe they got to take an elective or an exploratory class, or maybe they got to go be a part of that book club or whatever, but they never really got to really follow that path. And so they're now indoctrinated into I hate to use that word, but into the idea that their life is about, like what you said, Cassie, appeasing other people to get the things that they want, instead of really examining their own life. I don't know if Socrates or Aristotle said the unexamined life is not worth living. It's like they're not taught to examine their own life and really follow that passion, regardless of how much they're going to get paid or what kind of material success they're going to have or how much fame and fortune. It's finding true meaning. And that's why I created the docuseries, because that's what those schools are doing in Floyd, Virginia. Those schools are actually prioritizing listening to the kids and letting them following their natural curiosity. And those kids end up, if you trust them, it's like a seed that if you plant a seed and you give it the right water and the right conditions, it's going to grow into whatever it's going to be. But if you sit there and you try to put a bunch of fertilizer on it and force it to be something that it's not, it can't grow into what it's intended to be. And that seed of learning and curiosity and beauty that you talk about, the miracle that's within each child, I think unfortunately gets squashed out by the system.
Well, yeah, one of the big, and people don't mean any harm with this question. It's not like you should feel bad if you ask this question. I ask it too. But we always ask kids, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do? What are you going to
Right.
do? It's all about doing. And that's not what you start like being. Like, who are you? You just are. Be. It's become a popular quote now, but be curious, not judgmental. And we learn not by having answers, but by asking questions and then not judging those. And that question leads to another question. So I think learning, shifting from this is the answer to what are your questions, and then seeing where that leads. And again, putting what are you going to do can be helpful for coming up with the process. But the doing is the least important, arbitrary, who gives a crap goal. That doesn't matter at all. That's just there to be engaged in some process. And when you're full, that's what it's about. So I've tried to refrain from what are you going to do to the interesting thing is when you say, who are you? That's not something you can really answer either. Like, who are you? Or even, why do you want to do that? And that's not something we can have a literal calculated answer
Right.
for. It's just an expression. It's something we can bring awareness to. Be aware of when you feel alive, be aware of that moment. And then those are things that you can try to repeat and ask questions and go further into. Just bring awareness to your aliveness, bring awareness to when you have peace, bring awareness to when you have joy, and live in that space of that's where the abundance is, not in whatever manifests from it.
Right.
And when kids come into the library, and I'm not trying to make it all about the library, but it is all about the library.
Well, you're like,
The one of the things I'll ask them is, what do you enjoy? What do you like? And I said, don't give me the teachery answer. I mean, just what do you like? If it's gaming, if it's music, I mean, if it's sitting, just what do you like? Because I said, in knowing what you like, that kind of helps me find books you might like. That helps me, order things you might like. And something that's really been scary, I'll say, over the past 3 years is that so many kids, when I say, what do you like? They say, I don't know. They don't know what they like. I mean, they're like 12 and 13. Like, I said, I'm not looking for the teachery answer. Just what do you do for fun? How do you relieve stress? Because that's usually like, if they're listening to music a lot, then you might like music or, all these different things. They struggle to find an answer. But Todd, I think they're trying to find like a teachery answer. Like this must be a
Yeah.
trick question. You can't really want to know, what I like. And when students ask me about being a librarian, did you always know you wanted to be a librarian? I said no, but I always knew I loved books. I was actually in nursing school when I made the switch to go into education. So I wasn't going to be a doctor, but I was going to be a nurse. I come from a family of nurses, and so and I walked through. I would remember being on campus and just walking through the library and stopping. Like I used to love this stuff, and I sat down on the floor. Never made it to that class, and just started reading books. And I thought, you know what, this is what I like. I've always enjoyed books from the time I ever found my first book, and so I try to show the kid. I just try to talk to the kids about, you know, I don't know what's next for me. Like, you're going to be a librarian forever? I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be a librarian for now. I mean, the it's always wide open with me, but I know I love doing this, and hopefully, they can start to kind of, like you're saying, like trust themselves and trust, the process of what they're doing. One of the best things I remember about a student, and years ago, he was accepted into like honors English and honors mathematics. I mean, just big time. And he came to me, and I was teaching English at the time, ELA, and he says, I don't want to do honors English. And he says, and all my friends think I'm stupid for not wanting to do it, but I don't like it that way. I'm just good at it, but I don't like it. And I said, okay, then. I said, what do you like? And he's like, oh, math. And so, I mean, face lit up. I said, well, then, hey, you go with that. Like, if this isn't what you want to do, he's like, I mean, I'm just good at it, but I don't like it. I
Right.
don't like it. And I felt like that took a lot of bravery and that took a lot of self-awareness to be able to say, you know, all of these things. And he asked me if I would call his mom and explain this to him because to his mom because she wanted him to take all these honors classes, but she respected it. Once I just kind of told her, she was like, okay, that's fine. But I don't think that happens enough where a student says, I
Yeah.
don't want to do this. Like,
Yeah,
that
I think part of writing that book about the when you get in nature, I love when you get in nature, you get away from a lot of labels that have been slapped on you from society. So you kind of have a freedom then to explore, not out of fear or out of imposed limitations. The standardized testing trap is you get a bad grade at a young age and you think I'm a bad student. And this starts to enforce what you think you can like or not like, enjoy or don't enjoy, because you're not thinking about it from true sense of self. You're thinking about it from your experiences of having these negative experiences associated with what people say are successful. So you start to think, well, I'm not successful. So you start to envision yourself not doing successful things. Um, and what you said, start at Young said, until you become aware of what you're unaware of, it will control your whole life and you'll call it fate. And so when you start to bring awareness to these things, it's freeing. So one of the freeing things about nature is you're not being judged, you're not being limited by who you think you are, who you think other people think you are. You just are. And with that kind of space, I'm not worried if I'm good at said thing. I'm just going to be curious and do something with it. Okay. And then create an awareness that quite often people who think of themselves as successful or unsuccessful in any field always usually have the initial same experiences. The person who thinks of themselves as unsuccessful defines those initial failures as
Right.
uh, validation that I know I suck at this. A successful person who thinks they're successful says these are, they may not even think about it in terms of did I do well or not do well. They just did something asked questions and kept doing it, asked more questions and kept doing it. And whatever you explore from that natural place, not surprisingly, you start to get better at because you spend more time doing it. But we eliminate people from naturally being pulled into a flow of doing if they don't hit these X, Y, and Z benchmarks by a certain point, because now we have to give you a label, and now you'll live up or down to that label. Um, and then it's destroyed. It's not from an organic place of exploration.
You can see the loss of wisdom that kids develop. There's almost like an they unlearn how to live, how you're talking about. What they learn is to seek validation externally instead of living within themselves and deeply connected to that awareness, that substrate awareness that you're talking about. They become then lost in the thoughts about who they are and who other people think they are, and then they're trained to seek the grade, to seek the SAT score, to seek the award, to seek the, I'm going to be captain of this, I'm going to be homecoming queen, whatever. They seek to add to the ego, which is just this artificial sense of self. They seek to add layers onto that because that's what society tells them. That's how you're going to be good. That's how we're going to accept you. And I think that's an evolutionary thing to be accepted into your tribe, but it's actually psychologically damaging because they forget how to just be naturally joyous, which I think is the default state we're all born with, and we just forget it. And then we get to our adulthood and realize how we're living that life of quiet desperation, and then we have to go to a retreat to figure out how to have the wisdom that we were already born with.
Yes, do no thing, and then
Yeah.
it returns.
Pete, I want to tell you, first of all, I'm going to read your book again in a different lens because hearing you talk about it just makes me kind of want to go back to some things that I was thinking that it was about before, and to look. That's a good book. That's when I read this, I did. When I read it, I did. I emailed Todd. I was like, "This is a really good book. We need to talk. Can we talk to Pete Stone?" I knew that there were just late. I just knew anyway. I want to share with you my favorite part of this book.
Okay.
Uh, I said if I ever write a book, I would want someone to tell me the part that stands out to them. And this is my part. And it says, hold your breath and swim, swim, swim until your hand hits the forgotten sands of the hidden road. Gaze through the muddy murk at monster fish, dinosaur bones, and pirate treasures left long ago. Um, Pulling up from the shadowy, but then push away and kick quick, pulling up from the shadowy floor. Breathe the fresh air, and then mosey on over to the muddy shore. I don't know. I love that part. I don't know. I love that part. I love that part about the holding your breath and it. The first time I read it, and I don't even know why it put me in tears. I just thought it was
Okay.
so. I just love that part. I get to that part, and I don't know, and I can't explain it. But that's my part. That is my part. I almost bought a second copy just so I could take this page out
Mm-hmm.
and frame it and have it with me because I love this part. Tell me
Wow.
why I love this part. I don't know why I love this part. So you explain to me why I love this part.
Okay. Would it first off? Can't explain exactly why because that would not be it. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. So it's a mystery and a wonder. I think there's something about the essence of childhood of finally just jumping and leaping into water. And water has long been in our psyche as that kind of element of diving into the subconscious. And when the child dives into that, and then you find these treasures and dinosaur bones, these things that children, the child always romanticizes dinosaur bones, the pirate treasure on the hidden road. We live in an ancient world with all kinds of treasures and wonder. There's that quote from Rumi I put in there, maybe there's beauty all around us, but we think we have to be in the garden to see it. Where really you get caught in that moment if you just jump freely without thinking to perform and just dive into the
Mm.
water, and then you're cleansed. Woo! And then you find the treasure. and there's still some scary stuff in there, subconscious. So you got to swim like hell to get up out of it too. There's lizard man down there, right, and the monster fish and stuff. But these are the things that excite us too, cause the only a demon or something like that is just we haven't really explored what it is. So you give it its space, and then it's not a demon anymore. So
Right.
it's a cool little thing. And so then you come back up and you have successfully dived down into the subconscious, claimed your treasure, and came back out into the world with it to say, I made it. And now I'm not returning back to the lesser self I was before. I'm now more a truer form of my true self. Now I have found, dove into the water, found this treasure, and was able to return with it to be a real, more realized version of my true self. Now that I'm up here, yes,
I
and
love
I'm gonna
that.
take them to celebrate.
It feels a lot like Gabor Mate's work talking about, that how we sacrifice our authentic self, and then we have to spend money on therapy and so forth to reconnect with that authentic self, because we've been set up to sacrifice that authenticity for attachment and for validation. That return to self is so powerful, and what a wonderful thing it would be if our education system was set up so that we don't become disconnected from that authentic self, that our school days are designed around facilitating finding that treasure that you talk about.
Yeah, you get right to the edge of jumping, and you see yourself jumping, and it's that conversation, say, between the head and the heart, and the head wants to keep you safe, and your heart says, "Jump."
Mhm.
Let the fear go. Let them think what they think, because
Yeah.
their authentic self, even if it's messy and
Yes.
that's okay. It's part of it. Lose that perfection and this is a reminder too. I was let go of that need to be perfect and just explore with curiosity the wonder that you already are.
And self-compassion.
Yes.
Having that compassion for all the
Yeah.
parts of you that
Yes.
are there,
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling like you've got to hide them or
Hide that. No.
deny them.
Yeah.
And you said
So,
you couldn't explain it why I loved it, and you did.
well, we are running up at 8:00. I want to honor the time. I told you I could talk to you all for, the three of us, I think, could riff on this for hours, but I want to honor the time and just say thank you. I want to put the title of the book back up for those of you who might be watching. I Love the River by Pete Stone. Where can they find that, Pete?
It's on Amazon. They can Google it. I can put the link in the
Yeah,
description below.
do that. Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll try to put the link in the chat for us.
Can I do
Yeah, it
something
should be
real
there.
quick?
Okay,
You
you
know,
got it in there.
this is graduation season, and you've got graduates in your life. Um, this is a really good book to give for graduation. I sincerely believe that I've got lots of kids graduating. I've been invited to a couple of things, and I'm giving them a book. Like it seems like a silly thing, but I'm gonna write in it and hope that when they're in college or when they're beyond or working, that they'll kind of look at it from time to time. And I'm gonna tell them about how I use it. I keep it not in my bookshelf because things get lost there. I keep it on my coffee table so that I can just, hey, it's there. It's just a reminder. And so it would make a beautiful gift. I am not paid to give this advertisement. I did not get this book for free. Like it's just a really beautiful, simple book about just kind of everything he's talked about, just being true to yourself. It's so beautiful. Wonderful book. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your encouragement. And when you posted on Facebook back when you should write a book, that gave me the encouragement and confidence to push on through and get it completed. So
Good.
it's an honor to have such an amazing librarian and lover of books discuss it. So thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you.
I want to thank you both, and